So when I woke up this morning, I looked out the window and there was just this beautiful snowstorm taking place. And whenever I see a snowstorm like that, it's literally like I'm like on a string being magnetized towards it. I suit up and I go out into the storm, and there's just something about snowstorms which is so alluring to me. It's so calling. You know, I suit up and I go out into the storm, and it's you must know what I'm talking about when there's a certain everything is so still and muffled and quiet, and all you hear is the wind whirring through the trees, and sometimes it's so quiet that you can hear the snow patting as it hits the ground, and you know, the wind blowing in my face and blowing the snow in my face. And I was walking through this storm and just feeling the fresh air and the stillness of the environment around me. The sort of dormancy and like hibernation of nature. All these beautiful feelings were coming up in me. And I remembered that I got reminded of bison, this huge, beautiful animal. And I remember learning that bison, when there's a blizzard coming, they can sense it. And when they sense that a blizzard is coming, rather than, you know how, like if there's like a hurricane or a big storm coming, birds will retreat. They'll fly away from the storm. Bison do entirely the opposite. Bison, when they sense a storm coming, they point themselves at the storm and they walk directly into it. They face the storm. They brace themselves and go right into the storm. And the reason they do this, at first glance, you might be, why the hell do they do that? Why don't they try to run away from it? The reason they do this is because the bison know they can't outrun nature. So what they do is they point themselves directly at what's coming down the pike, the storm that they know is coming. And by going into it, you get to the other side of it quicker. If you were to try to run from the storm, you're only going to prolong your exposure to the storm. You see what I'm saying? Like literally. Like if the bison try to run from the storm is moving faster than they can migrate. So they're going to stay with the storm. They're going to prolong their exposure to the storm by trying to run away from it, by trying to outrun it. And the bison know that the way through is by going through. The way out is through. They face the storm and they go right into it. And because they're going at each other, the storm ends quicker. They get through it quicker. And when I was thinking about this, it started dawning on me that us humans, could very much so learn a beautiful, wise lesson from this quality of bison. Where when we sense a storm coming, we feel the inclination to run away from it. But what if what we need to do is to point right at the storm and to go right into it, to embrace it, to lean into that tension, rather than playing pretend and acting like it's not a reality, whatever that storm may be, financial crisis, heartbreak, a death in the family, whatever it is, a health situation for you, whatever your crisis is. Rather than trying to pretend that it's not a reality and distract yourself and run away from it, maybe for the first time, look right at it and say, here we are. The greatest heartbreak I've ever experienced in my life. Financial crisis. Depression. Let's go. Let's go right into it. Rather than playing pretend and playing make-believe and distracting ourselves, go right into it. Go right into it. Accept your fate. Accept the reality of the situation, that there is a storm coming that you don't necessarily want, but also don't necessarily have control in avoiding. Go into the storm. Accept reality as it is and live with reality as it is and embrace it. Like I said a moment ago, lean into that tension. Because in this life, we will undoubtedly, time and time again, be faced with adversity, be faced with hardship, be faced with misfortune, letdown, despair, all sorts of things that we don't want to experience, but are kind of a given in this mystery that we call life. And we we often live in this way of trying to run from that. Like as if the bison were to try to run from the storm, run from the blizzard. Now, what we're doing by avoiding, let's suppose that we can outrun the storm of our pain that's coming towards us. Okay, we can outrun it. We can move faster than it. Well, what does that mean? That means that you can't ever stop running, because the second you stop running, you gotta face the storm, man. The storm's gonna get you. So, yeah, okay, you can run faster than your storm. Now, you have to spend the rest of your life running from the storm that you're afraid to face. Your life is no longer there is no point of peace. There is no point to stop and smell the pretty flowers. Your life is a constant outrunning of reality. You're trying to run from the inevitable. And maybe you're doing a pretty good job. Maybe you're doing a pretty good job at masking and distracting and covering up and pretending it's not there and averting your attention from thing to thing to keep your eyes off of the pain that you're avoiding. Maybe you're doing a pretty good job at that. But nevertheless, it's this incessant running. It's this never-ending, non-ceasing running from your pain or running from whatever it is that you don't want to face, you know? But what I realized in remembering this quality of bison, of facing the storm, is that that's exactly what we need to do. That's exactly what I need to do. And that's, if anything, what I want to do. Because why would I want to live my life running from what I know is right behind me? Wouldn't I rather face it? Wouldn't I rather see what's coming and live with it and be with it and move through it? And I made a video not too long ago talking about how it's precisely our adversities and hardships and letdowns and heartbreaks in our life that are oftentimes the greatest teachers, the greatest forgers of compassion and love and courage and strength and confidence and all the admirable qualities that we all wish to embody. What it takes to embody those qualities is going through a lot of hard times, oftentimes. Going through a lot of stuff that we wouldn't wish on our worst enemy. Facing the storm, going right into the storm. My grandfather has this old story he told me of his father, my grandfather's dad, who was in the Marines, and they were out on a ship out in the ocean, and a tsunami started coming towards them. They looked out on the horizon and saw a whole tsunami coming at them, and they at the time were broadside to the tsunami. So what they needed to do, this is like protocol in this kind of situation, is you point directly at it. You aim yourself right at the tsunami. Because if you're broadside, it's just going to roll you right over. But if you point at it, you sort of break into it and it goes up and over and it flows through. And that's what my grandfather's dad did, was they pointed the ship directly at the wave, and they had just enough time to get the bow of that ship pointed, facing that tsunami where they didn't roll over when it came through. And once again, that's just an incredible example of how it takes aiming ourselves at the adversity that's inevitably coming. You know? What are they going to do? They're going to turn the ship and try to drive faster than it? Go faster than the tsunami? You know? They're going to pretend it's not coming? No, you go at it. You accept your fate and you face it. That's what courage is. That's what strength is. Do you really want to live your life running from what you know is coming? Whatever that may be. Transformation starts when you accept where you are. Whatever that may be. Whether you're happy, whether you're despairing, Whether you're living under a bridge, whether you're heartbroken, whatever it is, transformation starts when you're willing to live with reality as it's presenting itself in that moment. No more pretending, no more running from, no more distracting, no more make-believe and masking it, you know what I'm saying? Admitting where you are, leaning into that tension. You ever had a moment with a loved one, whether it was a family member or a friend or a partner or whatever it was, where they were doing something that was bothering you, and they had been doing it for a prolonged period of time, and it was starting to sort of compound within you. It was starting to fester within you, and you were starting to build a lot of resentment towards them, but you weren't saying anything, you weren't voicing it, because you were afraid of creating conflict. Kind of dismissing the fact that there's all this conflict within you from avoiding conflict. You see what I'm saying? You think you're avoiding conflict by not voicing how you feel to that person, but now the conflict is just inside you. And what is a relationship if you can't voice what's going on inside of you? So it gets to the point where it boils over, and you say, you address your friend, your partner, your family member. You share with them, hey, what you've been doing has really been bothering me. It doesn't sit well with me, you know, and you're all tense and all nervous inside and scared, and you're literally shaking with adrenaline because of how afraid of the tension and the conflict you are. But then it pans out. It pans out, and they hear you, and they receive you, and they see you. They feel what you're saying. They receive what you're saying. And the problem is alleviated. And you guys come to a place of equilibrium. You come to a place of balance and harmony together. And what it took was you having the courage to voice how you feel, to lean into that conflict. You're not creating conflict by voicing how you feel. There either is conflict or there isn't. And if there is conflict, you're either storing it inside of you and pretending it's not there, or it's being shared as an open dialogue between you and your loved one. There either is conflict or not. So when there is conflict, it's best to accept where you are, accept that there's conflict, and to voice it, to share how you're feeling, you know? That's just yet another example of how it's when we lean into that tension, when we embrace that storm, that it's able to move through us. By avoiding the tension, by avoiding the conflict, we're being like the bison trying to outrun the storm. And then we just end up staying right in the middle of the storm because it's moving at the same speed. But if we turn around and face it, and we share how we're feeling with our loved one, the storm moves through. You see what I'm saying? Can you see that analogy? You see that vision? It's so applicable. And it was, outside on my walk today, it was beautiful. Realizing that this life is about being where we are and accepting how we feel. Something that's completely transformed my life within literally the past couple months is learning that when a feeling comes up within me, it's because it wants to be felt and it has a place to be felt. It deserves to be felt. Now, if a happy, pleasurable feeling comes up, there's no question about letting it be felt. But then it's when anger comes up, when frustration comes up, when depression comes up, when insecurity comes up, when confusion comes up, when feeling lost comes up. Oh geez, now there's this inclination to want to run away from it, to pretend it's not there, to say, oh, I shouldn't be feeling this. If I was more spiritual, I wouldn't feel these low vibe emotions. That's absolute nonsense. These feelings are coming up, and if you were a really spiritual individual, you would understand that these feelings coming up, both positive and negative, are like a purging. You let the happy move through you, but when the negative comes up, you push it down. You push it away. You know? When all this junk comes up, it wants to come out of you. And I call it junk, but I only mean that as a descriptive word to describe the sort of low vibration quality to it. But it's not junk in that it's teaching you. But it can only teach you when you allow it to move through you. Our bodies are like a vessel. We're like a channel through which reality flows. Reality wants to flow naturally. It's like a river. Reality moves through you. You are being lived by the nature and the spirit of life itself, which is a whole heap of experiences and circumstances and thoughts and emotions and feelings and all sorts of stuff. But our will gets in the way. We get all misconstrued inside with our minds from our upbringing and all sorts of different experiences we go through, where we start to block ourselves. We start to get in our own way. We start to dam the river of our own lives. And we suppress, and we pretend it's not there, and we push away, and we avoid, and we deny, and we distract, until we're literally filled to the brim with toxic stuff. These feelings will only get worse the more you deny their reality. Carl Jung says, what you resist persists. The more you pretend there isn't conflict, when indeed there is, you just don't want to admit that, the more you pretend you're not sad, the more you pretend you're not insecure, the more you pretend you're not upset, the more you pretend you're not angry, which is passive aggressive, you know what I'm saying? You all know what that looks like. The more you pretend all this stuff isn't there, the more it builds into something that is way worse, that turns out to be way worse than if you were to just have admitted it was there in the beginning. When somebody does something and they frustrate you, let it come up and let it go. You don't hold on to it. You don't cling to it. Because when you hold on to it and when you cling to it and push it away and, oh, I'm not mad, that didn't bother me, no. Hey, are you okay? Yeah, I'm fine. You know? When you pretend that whole charade, it just gets worse. All that stuff builds up. Your body and your mind and your spirit are so much more intelligent than what you give it credit for. It is so much more wise, so much more intuitive, so much more knowing than you give it credit for. So when a feeling comes up, let yourself feel it. If you're heartbroken, or somebody in your family dies, or a friend dies, or a pet dies, or whatever it is, when those immense emotions come up, don't fight them. Don't pretend you're fine. Let yourself cry. Let yourself scream. Let yourself fall to your knees and break down. That is the human heart, the human spirit, speaking in its native tongue. That expression that you can't even put words to, when you're heartbroken and you're thinking and you're having visions and feelings that you can't even put words to, that is the spirit speaking its language, speaking from its soul, speaking from who you truly are. Do you really want to silence that? Yeah, it's intense. Yeah, it's overwhelming. But who said life was just going to be easy and boring and mundane and, Who said life wasn't supposed to be intense? Who said life wasn't supposed to bring you down to your knees? Who said life wasn't supposed to humble you, to sit you down? When you start to vibe with the fact that the immensity and intensity of life and its hardships and adversity is here to teach you and to transform you and to forge you by fire, you'll never want to block something ever again. You may feel inclinations to want to run away from it or suppress it or distract yourself, but that's once you realize that these hard times are here to shape you and transform you and that the idea is to face it. Anytime you get that knee-jerk reaction to want to run from it or pretend it's not there, that's like an old habit reverberating into the present moment. That's an old pattern that you've shed. It's still kind of, it's like the last little glowing embers of a fire, you know what I'm saying? So when you feel that, this is a horrible feeling, I want to run from this, screw that, I'm going to go drink, I'm going to go talk to this person, you know what I'm saying? When you get that feeling to avoid, those are just echoes of the past self, which coped with reality by running from reality. Which coped with the snowstorm by trying to outrun the snowstorm. Which just ends up prolonging the snowstorm, prolonging the hardship. So if there's an essence to this video, it's to say, face the storm, bro, because it's not here to just hurt you. It's not pointless, it's not meaningless. It's here to transform you, to grow you. But you need to be willing to accept where you are. You need to be willing to feel what your body wants to feel. You're only gonna make things so much more worse, magnitudes worse, by running from reality, by pretending that you're not feeling what you're feeling. So lean into that tension, embrace that storm, you know? And I mean, talking in the sense of a snowstorm, it's beautiful. When you're heartbroken, when you're despairing, when you're grieving, when you're feeling those immense emotions, those negative emotions, take a moment to appreciate how deeply you can feel. Look at how deep emotions can go. To quote Carl Jung once again, you can only have branches that reach into the light of heaven if you also as well have roots that descend down into the depths of hell. It's duality, it's balance, it's yin and yang. If you want to experience love, bliss, unity, beauty, joy, you need to also be willing to experience the other face of those emotions. The heartbreak, the despair, the confusion, the insecurity, the not knowing. We gotta be able to live with reality as it is. We have to be willing to be right where we are, whether that's basking in bliss and clarity, or wallowing in agony. Now, it's not easy to be in that agony, but man, every time you allow yourself to be precisely where you are, you're telling the universe and the inner innate wisdom of your own mind, body, and spirit that you have what it takes to be right where you are. And you're stronger than you're putting on. You have more courage than you're putting on. You're wiser than you say you are. You're deeper than you say you are. The universe knows that shit. The universe picks up on that when you're willing to live with reality as it is. You may do something that's wise and not even know it, but the universe knows it. Because the universe is wisdom. The universe is innate, intrinsic wisdom. So when you do something that is wise, that is in the Tao, in the flow of the universe, you will be rewarded for it. You will be rewarded for living with reality in a wise and harmonious way. So if there's any message to take from this video, it's to lean into the storm of your life right now. I'm sure you got something going on, whether it's small or whether it's titanic and monumental. Lean into that storm. Stop running from it. You're only exhausting yourself and prolonging the hardship. It wants to move through you, but you need to let it happen in order for it to move through you. Thank you guys so much for watching this video. I really hope you enjoyed. And if you did enjoy, consider subscribing and leaving a like on this video because it really helps me out and it helps get this video recommended to more people like you.